Hey, what's up? Gonna do one about neoconservatism today. These days you're always hearing somebody being called that. You know, people like Nikki Haley or Lindsey Graham. Lord, tons of people. Dick Cheney, McCain. But what is that? What is a neocon? What does it mean? So that's what I'm going to tackle today, because I wasn't sure myself. I had some vague notion of what it might be, but I wasn't really sure. So anyway, I'm going to talk about where it originates, what its doctrine is, and what it's doing in the world today. Because after all, you can't really know where you're going unless you know where you've been and where you are. So here goes. Okay, if you're going to know a little bit about neoconservatism, you got to know a little bit about this old boy right here named Leon Trotsky, who was one of Lenin's proteges and one of the founders of the Russian Revolution. He was an arch enemy of Stalin. Stalin had him murdered down in Mexico. He was hiding out in Mexico, and Stalin got hold of him, or Stalin's boys got hold of him, and they shoved like a pickaxe into his brain and killed him. But at any rate, a lot of the guys who started neoconservatism were kind of disciples of this guy. So let me just read some of the stuff that I've grokked here, and we'll just read it. The movement was spearheaded by a group of influential intellectuals, many of whom were Jewish and had a background in the Trotskyite left. Key figures in the development of neoconservatism include Irving Kristol, that's Bill Kristol's daddy, Norman Podhoretz, and Daniel Bell. These individuals, along with others, began to publish influential journals such as The Public Interest, that was a magazine, and Commentary, that was a magazine. They were published by some very influential Jewish intellectuals, which helped to shape the ideas and principles of the movement. Neoconservatism is much more of a worldview than a coherent political ideology. That worldview has been shaped by rather traumatic historical events, most notably the Nazi Holocaust and the events of the 1930s that led up to it. Of course, the Great Depression and pervasive anti-Semitism were important causes. But neoconservatives also stress three others: the failure of liberal institutions in the Weimar Republic to prevent the rise of Nazism in Germany, the appeasement of Hitler by the Western European democracies, and their failure to confront him militarily early on, and the isolationism practiced by the United States during this fateful period. Notice it's talking about Nazis. It's talking about anti-Semitism and fear of Nazis that spurred this movement to begin. I don't know. I grokked it. This is what Grok told me. Trotsky was Jewish too, by the way. But anyway, let's move on a little bit to a little more detail. Okay, so I'm just going to read through this little bullet point list here, enumerating their basic beliefs, and then after that I'll comment on it. But anyway, they have a Manichaean worldview in which good and evil are constantly at war, and the United States has an obligation to lead the forces of good around the globe. We're going to lead the forces of good. Of course, Manichaean, it's a dualistic approach, a dualistic perspective. Good and evil, absolute, black and white. Manichaeanism was a sect of Gnosticism back early on in the early Christian church, but that's Manichaeanism, and that's what they think and how they think. They have a belief in the moral exceptionalism of both the United States and Israel, and the absolute moral necessity for the U.S. to defend Israel's national security. Because we're the best, and we're the good guys, and Israel is, and we're just absolutely necessary, and we're gonna be the good, and we're Manichaean and the good guys, and everybody else is the bad guy. You're either with us or the terrorists, as George Bush said. They have a conviction that in order to keep evil at bay, the United States must have and be willing to exercise the military power necessary to defeat any and all challengers. There's a corollary. Force is the only language that evil understands. That's all they understand. They're just brute, old beastie boys, and we're gonna fight them because we're good. And anything we do is good. We're going to go in the Middle East because they're a threat to Israel's national security. And we're going to cause chaos to keep them from being able to fight Israel. And we're going to invade and start bully wars with Saddam Hussein and just get that old motherfucker. And the 1930s with Munich appeasement, Chamberlain, Churchill, that taught them everything we need to know. You can't appease the Nazis. You can't appease the evil. You have to go punch them in the nose and bloody their eye first. And you can't be like old Neville Chamberlain yelling peace in our time and all that stuff. Heaven forbid you'd want to try to make peace before you go to war. I mean, golly. And now here's the kicker. Democracy in general is desirable, but it only depends on who wins the election. Now that all seems well and good. I mean, it seems kind of priggish there, but hey, I could live with it, I guess. But see, the trouble is, what happens when they turn that on the United States itself? What happens when they turn that inward? Huh? What happens if the people won't vote the way they want? Has it ever struck you as being odd that the left always calls everyone who disagrees with them a Nazi? Huh? I mean, we're seeing it borne out here in the United States. The chickens are coming home to roost. That's what I see anyway. What the hell do I know? But here's the Project for the New American Century and the American Enterprise Institute were a couple of think tanks that really were the flagship instigators of neoconservatism. Initiators, I suppose. Instigator, initiator. But look at them there. There's Biden and there's Bush. There's Obama, and there's Clinton, and David Rockefeller, and, Republicans or Democrats. It doesn't make any difference. Dick Cheney, the Martin Bormann of the American Empire. Rumsfeld, And, I'm not even going to get into that right now. I'm going to do a video on it. There's a conspiracy theory that has some evidence that suggests that these motherfuckers actually staged 9/11 as an excuse to be able to invade the Middle East and knock off Israel's allies. Or not allies, but enemies. But that's for another video. Okay. The neocons span both political parties, as I just said. Indeed, with the rise of populism, many of the neocons are going back to the Democratic Party from whence they originally came, because almost all of them were Democrats. They became disillusioned with the Democratic Party because the Democratic Party started to become isolationist and anti-war with Vietnam. They didn't like that shit. They wanted to fight. They wanted to get out and duke it out with everybody. So they all became Republicans, and they took over the Republican Party from the shadows. And they stand in opposition to populism, which would leave control of the nation to an actual and not farcical democratic process. See, they don't like the democratic process. They like it if it gives them what they want. But if it doesn't, because they're the exceptional people. They're the good people. They can do whatever they damn well want, and if they don't like the election or the voting, then they just change it somehow, some way. They see the Constitution as an obstacle to the achievement of those goals, and they hold the people in contempt, deceiving them with propaganda to acquire and hold power. And I think this is the reason why there's so much division in the United States and why it's promoted by the media, by the government, by the establishment, all this idiotic transgender shit. I mean, or the flat earth conspiracy that you used to see all over the place on the internet. Millions and millions of third world people who don't give a damn about the Constitution or the Bill of Rights. They're flooding the country with them, and it's all to aggrandize their power and control. This is the way I see it. Essentially, neoconservatism seeks to establish a quasi-Trotskyite corporate socialist state here at home while using America's military might to further Zionist interests overseas. Now, this is where it led me. This is where the research led me. Don't get me wrong. I support Israel in this deal with Gaza. I mean, people say, oh, it's terrible. But my question to that is, what else is Israel going to do? What else are they going to do? I typically tend to support Israel, even though I don't think for one instant that Israel gives a damn about us at all. But at any rate, but this is where the research led me. And this is what I believe neoconservatism is. And, obviously a lot of other people think that because that's what I found by scouring the internet for all this shit. And, grokking it, that AI is the future of internet research. But that's essentially it. I hope you learned something. I sure as hell learned something researching this. If you like my videos, give me a thumbs up, like, and subscribe, because I'd like more people to see these videos. I feel like I'm pissing in the wind with a lot of this stuff. But the information I'm giving is good, I think. But at any rate, that's it. Adios.
Got himself in a terrible jam way down yonder in Vietnam. Put down your books and pick up a gun. We're gonna have a whole lot of fun. And it's 1, 2, 3. What are we fighting for? Don't ask me, I don't give a damn. The next stop is Vietnam. And it's 5, 6, 7. Open up the pearly gates. Well, there ain't no time to wonder why. Woo-hoo!